Hey y'all, my name is Chance. I am a cinematographer and DP based in Corvallis, Oregon, and I own Cascara Films LLC. It's a production company based here in Oregon, and I shoot on Red DSMC2 cameras primarily. And in this video, I just wanted to talk about the Red Monstro, which is a camera I upgraded to back in February, so maybe 5 months ago or so. Before that, I was using the Weapon Dragon 6K, which I think came out in about 2016, but that had the legacy Dragon sensor in it and had the same capabilities as the Dragon X, but it was a little bit older. And I do still have that camera, but I have upgraded to the Monstro for my main productions and then use the Dragon as the B camera. That's kind of just setting the stage for the few things I want to talk about this camera right here. So throughout this video, I'm also going to intersperse and cut in some B-roll and just some sample shots from the last few months that I've shot on both this camera and the Dragon. I will label which is which so that you can kind of get an idea. First off, in most shooting situations, the images look very, very similar. They're both incredible sensors, but there are a few specific cases where this Monstro sensor really shines compared to the Dragon, and I want to talk about just a few of those minor and major differences that make this kind of the ideal sensor to use on my productions. And the first one is that it is a VistaVision size sensor, so it's actually larger than like full frame, like a photography full frame. So width-wise, 7K on this camera is about the same as a full frame mirrorless sensor like is in my A7S III recording this video. So 8K is actually larger than full frame, but the sensor's aspect ratio is a little bit wider than a photography-based sensor. So oftentimes when I'm using like photo glass, I'll actually shoot this camera in 7K, and that gives me a full frame field of view, saves me some data, and prevents vignetting on some lenses like this Sigma 24-70, which vignettes on the wide end a little bit when you're in 8K mode, or when you have NDs stacked on the front. So most of the benefits of the Monstro sensor come from the sensor actually being physically larger. The dynamic range increase, which the Dragon was rated at 16.5 stops, the Monstro is rated at 17 stops, and Red tends to overestimate their dynamic range a little bit in either case, but this has a little bit more dynamic range. That's due to a new sensor architecture. But because it's a larger sensor, the pixel pitch is actually the same as the Dragon, and that pixel pitch is the physical size of the pixels. So the pixels in this camera are actually the exact same size as what are in the Dragon. And that gives a few benefits to your image quality, but the biggest one is the low light performance. And again, part of that is contributed to by the new sensor architecture, the new technology in it. But that larger pixel pitch compared to like the Helium is what helps. And the Gemini actually has an even larger pixel pitch, but this is still pretty big for sensors, especially compared to that Helium sensor. So the low light performance on here, just to give you some numbers, is a very substantial improvement. On the Dragon, I would be scared to shoot it at 2000 and above, but on this sensor, I can easily shoot it at 5000, and with a little bit of noise reduction in DaVinci Resolve, it cleans up very nicely and is completely usable. And that actually lets me do this little trick, which Red kind of hinted at in one of their Solitary series videos about ISO. But when I'm shooting like interviews indoors, but with some windows in the background, I'm giving you an example of something I just did recently on a shoot. You can rate the ISO a little bit higher, and because the dynamic range is so great and the low light performance is so good, I was able to rate my ISO at like 2000 and then ND down so that I actually was able to properly expose both the subject and the windows in the background, because we didn't have enough lights to just, blast the subject and even out that exposure. So being able to crank the ISO and still get a very clean image allowed me to compensate for that and still have the image exposed properly without all of the lighting equipment that you would see on a set to get a similar image with the Dragon or something. And we, let alone lighting the entire room that we were in. So that is really the big advantage. And so that dynamic range bump, which I do notice sometimes, but isn't as big of a change. The wider field of view, and then most importantly, the low light performance for someone like me who shoots a lot of commercial work, run and gun work, event coverage, that kind of stuff, and you know, a lot of people would argue that a red DSMC2 is not the best camera to use for that, but I use this camera because I love the image that comes out of it. And I've had my fair share of frustrations with these cameras too, but the DSMC2 ecosystem is a very nice ecosystem to live in when everything does work. So, and that is my last point too, is going from the weapon Dragon. I was able to use all the same accessories that I had for that camera on the Monstro and interchange them. So now I have a very nice kit where I can have one of the brains rigged up in a handheld configuration like this, and then I can have the other one living on the Movi Pro. So those are just my thoughts, you know, right now after about 5 months of using this DSMC2 weapon Monstro in carbon fiber, and comparing it to the Dragon 2. Again, the Dragon sensor is very, very nice, but this one really is, it's just a step above. And, you know, it's been a blast to use, especially now that the prices are coming down. This thing is half the price of a V-Raptor and 98% as good. So I would definitely recommend it. You know, I have had some issues with like hardware failures and bugs and quirks and stuff, but for the price, I think this is one of the best value for money cameras out there right now. So that's just my 2 cents. And I'll also include a B-roll sequence here at the end, so you guys can see like a kind of a comparison video, and also just, you know, some gorgeous red Monstro footage.